Hello everyone and welcome to this Jazz Focus on the Nordic countries taking place as part of the From Home Expo Days, a series of online events organized by the CNM, the Centre National de la Musique. We are pleased to kick off the event by a session of jazz market presentations about Finland, Norway, Sweden, Denmark and Estonia. And we are very grateful to the representatives of the Nordic Jazz Federations who agreed to present the specificities of their country to us today. So thank you to you for joining us. And now I'm delighted to give the floor to Raisa Siivola from Jazz Finland, who is going to introduce the session.
Thank you very much, Lison, and thank you for CNM for organizing all this. So, bonjour, huomenta, tere hommikus, good morning, and good morning on behalf of me and on my wonderful Nordic colleagues too. So my name is Raisa Siivola, and I have the honor to try and guide you through this very early morning session. So I hope you all have some coffee or tea or something else to wake you up, because we have a lot of discussions to do. But we will begin with an overview on the jazz scenes in the 4 Nordic countries. And each country's national jazz organization's representative will give approximately a 10-minute presentation. In between the presentations, there's a short break for questions. And you can post your questions on the online chat box there. And the wonderful Lison or myself, we will pick them up from there. And we also try to have some time for a real Q&A session right after the whole presentation format. And before our group discussions that will begin shortly after that. But let's go straight to Estonia and welcome Kirke Karja from the Estonian Jazz Union.
Hey everybody, really lovely to be here. Okay, I'm going to share my screen now, just a second. Okay. Oh, okay. So I'm from Estonian Jazz Union, and my name is Kirke Karja. I'm the chairman of the board, and also I work as a jazz pianist and composer, and I'm also a member of the board of Estonian Authors Union. So let's go straight to the topic. You probably know that Estonia is quite a small country, and we don't have many people living here, a little bit more than 1 million people. And the capital is Tallinn, so lots of cultural events happen here. But of course, all around Estonia as well, because going to smaller towns is really a priority here for us, so that everything wouldn't be in a capital. And there are some things that we are like really, really proud of. Really well-known composer Arvo Pärt, and also some technical things, for example, Skype and TransferWise. And also we have here really lots of clean air and forests. And to be honest, I think that those things somehow describe the mentality and the way Estonian musicians think as well, that in a way we have like strong connection with nature. Probably it's in all Nordic countries like this. And also people are really into technology. So probably the most well-known jazz musicians, you've probably heard of them, are pianist Kristjan Randalu, singer Kadri Voorant, double bass player Peedu Kass, guitar player Jaak Sooäär, saxophonist who's living in Denmark at the moment, Maria Paust, pianist Holger Marjamaa, drummer Tanel Ruben, saxophone player Aleksander Paal, pianist Joel Remmel, and so on. And shortly about the jazz audience in Estonia, it's really diverse. There are some young kids who are quite into jazz, and also like pensioners, for example, and artists and businessmen, so you just name it. And our audiences are quite young. Sometimes when I go to jazz music concerts, I see like people from all different ages. So this is, I think, really, really cool. Okay, a little bit about some organizations and key figures. So probably the most famous Estonian jazz music festival is Jazzkar, which is led by Anne Erm, and it will be already 32 years old this year now. And they have this main festival in spring, Grand Festival Jazzkar. They have like really lots of listeners, maybe like 30,000, which is quite a lot in Estonia. And this is really international as well. And then they do also 3 other festivals in Tallinn as well. In autumn, they have Autumn Jazz Festival. Before Christmas, there is Christmas Jazz. And in January and February, there is Winter Jazz Festival. Then the second organization where I work, Estonian Jazz Union, we organize jazz concert in different venues all around Estonia. And also we do international exchange projects. And our concerts mostly take place in jazz clubs, but once or twice a year, we try to do a bigger special projects as well in different beautiful venues. And the third thing, which everybody are really proud of, is Jazz Club Philly Joe's. It's now 7 years old, and Philly Joe's Jazz Club has seen star artists from Estonia and from all over the world, and hosted perhaps around maybe 800 music events, including concerts, masterclasses, workshops, music, cinema, and so on. And people really love this place because it is made by musicians for musicians. There is like really great atmosphere, wonderful grand piano, sound system, great sound engineers, good spot on the Freedom Square, and so on. And at the moment, this is led by Reigo Afen, who's also a really good drummer. And with Jazzkar Festival and Jazz Club Philly Joe's, we work together really a lot. For example, when there is this Grand Jazzkar Festival happening in Tallinn in the end of April, well, this year it will happen in the end of summer, but during that time, for example, Estonian Jazz Union and Philly Joe's, we don't do any concerts in Tallinn, so we are kind of not trying to eat each other out. And of course, sometimes we do some bigger projects together as well. For example, some really majestic concerts, or also Jazzkar and Jazz Union rent concert rooms from Philly Joe's. So, yes. And then there is Eesti Kontsert. It's translated Estonian Concert. They're really old organization. Well, mostly they do classical music concerts, but also they have a focus on jazz music as well. And what is different if we compare Estonian Concert with those previous organizations and venues is that they have access to really, really beautiful concert halls all around Estonia. So their profile is a little bit different. And then there is Tallinn Music Week, which is a showcase festival. They have lots of different stages. One is for jazz music. And this year, hopefully it will happen in June. This is also really, really nice. But yeah, of course, I mentioned now those organizations that are doing international projects, but there are like lots of really lovely festivals also, but they have mostly local artists. Okay, I would tell you shortly about some existing collaborations that Estonia has with France. One is Crisscross Europe, which is like a creative lab. I think this year in France is not participating in this, but I hope that they will be on board next year as well. And so there are like different musicians from different countries all around to Europe. And then they are rehearsing around the week in some country, and then they will tour in Europe. In 2019, I was participating this. It was in France, and the mentor was Bojan Sulfi-Karpasic. It was really cool. And then, as I mentioned, the Jazz Union has lots of exchange projects. And with France, we are doing one with Jazzra. I hope I say it correctly. This is a festival which is happening in Saint-Étienne, and I was there also 3 years ago and saw really nice French bands, super lovely people who are organizing this. And yeah, also like all exchange projects with Jazz Union are warmly welcomed. And number 4, as you probably all know, our own French guy in Finland, but who's like really familiar for Estonian people as well, Charles Gilles, and if he's organizing some nice bands to Finland, then I'm really happy that he brings them here as well. For example, I remember 1.5 years ago, he was Sylvain Darifou. Charles organized him here, and this was like really amazing concert. And yeah, Jazzgar is working together a lot with Embassy of France. And last but not least, many concerts happen because of personal contacts as well that musicians have themselves. Okay, I will skip the funding part because I don't have that much time. But yeah, some tips for like coming to Estonian market is that I had a chat yesterday with the booker from Philly Joe's, and he said that well, they're like really flexible, to be honest, but he would like to know info about a band who wants to have a concert here, maybe half a year before the concert. And the same thing happens with the Estonian Jazz Union. About media, since this is a really small country, everybody knows everybody. So if you have some concert here, you can just let me know. You can write me on my email or even to Facebook Messenger. So everybody knows everybody, and I think it's not really difficult to get to the media. For example, I'm sometimes writing articles about music to some cultural magazines as well, and which is also really nice if musicians, they would like to give some workshops in Estonian Academy of Music. So this is also a really good thing if you can do that. And one thing we're really looking forward here in autumn, in September, the conference of European Jazz Network will be in Tallinn. So I really hope that we can do it and we can see you all here. That would be really lovely because, you know, talking face to face is something really, really good in this field. So I'm done. I will stop sharing now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kirke. And there are a few things I would like to also mention here before we move on, is that the Estonian Jazz Union, they have done a really fantastic job internationally. And I also would like to give a big hand to Philly Joe's. It's an extremely great place, club. And also worth mentioning, and I think it's in all of the Nordic countries, is that the personal contacts is what makes us what makes the best way to approach our countries or the markets. And also one thing is the EGN conference in Tallinn. I would definitely suggest anybody who's interested in the Estonian market to actually go and get to know the country and their players and their music through that. It's in September, hopefully the pandemic allows. Let's move on to Denmark. We have Lars Thor Jensen from the national organization Jazz Denmark or Danmark. And as a segue from Estonia to Denmark, there's an Estonian-born sax player you might know, Maria Faust, who actually in 2019 won the award by the Danish Union of Composers and Songwriters, because she resides in Denmark right now. So welcome, Lars.
Thank you. And on that note, I will say I think she's already won 5 or 6 Danish music awards for jazz as well. So she is quite a household name. We kind of like see Maria as one of our own. So sorry, Estonia. But my name is Lars, and I am a project manager working for the Danish Jazz Federation. And I will just share my screen so you can see my presentation. Here we go. Can you all see my presentation? Yeah. Well, first of all, yeah, I'm from Jazz Denmark. This is actually a music award picture. Jazz Denmark was formed in 1997 as a Danish Jazz Union. We are not a non-profit. We are a non-profit organization and a non-membership organization. And basically, we work as the main export office for Danish jazz. And we are part of this program of 4 organizations working with different genres. And you can see Jazz Denmark is on the top. These are our tasks. So if you want to know something about Denmark and Danish jazz, I mean, feel free to contact us. We are basically the ones to point you in the right direction. So every question you have, we're the counseling part. We also do like a lot of export things and projects within Denmark. Yeah, we're located in Copenhagen, but we work nationwide and of course also outside of Denmark. And yeah, we have 5 employees. Yeah, most external. And these are some of the projects that we're working on. You might seen some of the Nordic Jazz comments is outside. And one project that isn't there that I actually would recommend you to check out is called Summer Session, which is a week-long stay here in Denmark, where you come and you get taught by international artists. We've had people like Tom Harrell, Richard Bona, so forth. And actually we had a lot of Estonian musicians over here as well over the years taking part in the sessions. So check it out on a webpage later on. And I think it's a good way to get to know the Danish scene, actually. So Denmark, we are 5.8 million people, so we're fairly small country compared to France. And what you can say about the Danish music scene is that it's quite diverse, like Estonia and the rest of the Scandinavian countries, ranging from free jazz, avant-garde, to more contemporary stuff, bebop, hard bop, you name it, New Orleans jazz. Some of the biggest players you might know: Jakob Bro, the guitar player, Marilyn Masur, percussionist, drummer, and then singer Signe E. And of course we have the Doki brothers, and before that we also had Nøb and big players like that. So you probably know a lot of Danish artists. On top of that, actually, we have a big tradition for big bands. We have more than 100 active big bands in Denmark. And the most famous ones, of course, are the Danish National Radio Big Band, DR Big Band, and also Aarhus Jazz Orchestra and Katrine Windfeldt Big Band. So also, if you work with big bands, Denmark is a way to get in and collaborate. We also have some collective working as also labels. We have Barefoot, Ilk Music, and the label in top is Community, which is not really a label, it's just a community. All of them working in more the free jazz experimental stuff. But in Denmark, everything is not really organized. Some venues have like a tradition for, how do you say, bebop, and so the players, they meet there. So it's quite scattered, and you'll always find some communities around the different venues, especially in Copenhagen and Aarhus. Bringing into venues. Of course, in Denmark, we have a lot of funding. So there's state funding and city council funding for venues, which means that we have a lot of venues all over Denmark. More of them are smaller, and some are bigger, and then we have a lot of festivals. We have 3 major festivals with international bookings. I'll get back to them. We have around 30 smaller jazz festivals scattered all over Denmark. Most of them are mainly doing Danish jazz, but now and then there will be some international artists coming there. And then we have more than 200 venues and local jazz clubs also scattered all over Denmark. And of course, some regional venues that are sort of obligated to present jazz. So they are also doing a lot of international bookings because they get funding from the state to do concerts within the specific frames. In general, we have around 3,000 to 4,000 jazz concerts in Denmark, which can seem quite a lot. It is actually. And on top of that, I think we release around 150 CDs with Danish artists, or CDs, CDs, vinyls, whatever, with Danish artists as well. The way that the Danish club system or booking system works is like everywhere else in Europe, I guess. They book like 6 months in advance, and coming from outside of Denmark, I would suggest you be actually quite earlier than that, maybe even up to 9 months, because there aren't that many venues that do international artists, and when they do, they need to make sure that they sort of have a gathering. It can be quite hard for foreign bands to come to play to Denmark unless you have some connections. Like Kirke talked about, there's a lot of personal collections going on if you want to play. And of course, if you have a booker agent or have played in Denmark before, it's easier to get into Denmark and play. These are some of the big festivals. You might know the Copenhagen Jazz Festival. I think it's one of the biggest in Northern Europe, with more than 100,000 guests during the 10 days. Then you have Aarhus Jazz Festival, who also takes part, like the Copenhagen Jazz Festival, in July. And then we have a new one called Jazz i Trekanten, which is in Jutland, that funny part of Denmark that looks like a face with a nose. And they take part in the end of August. On top of that, there is a thing called Winter Jazz, which is a nationwide festival presenting music all over Denmark, which takes part in the whole of February, but mainly focusing on Danish artists. But now and then, if you have the right contacts, you could actually be able to play there. And some of the clubs, just to give you a quick overview, I've taken a few of the clubs that present international artists. This is actually from one of the places called 5E, where there's a lot of free jazz going on. This is actually one, it used to be one of the, now it's not there anymore at the moment, but it used to be one of the places to go to Copenhagen and just hang with people and do the jams and stuff. We have a lot of tradition for that as well. So here are the big ones: Jazzhus Montmartre, Alice, Atlas, Gossel and Dexter. And then we have some smaller ones. As you can see, they're quite scattered all over Denmark. But in general, the big cities like Aarhus and Copenhagen are the places where you want to maybe check out the venues, because that's basically where things are happening. But like I said, there is jazz all over Denmark. So if you have the right connections, like, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to go to Aalborg or Odense for that matter. But this is the most important thing for you. On our webpage, we have a database of all the venues in Denmark. So you can actually go in, I'm sorry, it's in Danish, but maybe you can figure it out somehow, but you can actually go look for specific venues concerning your style of music, actually. So I would give this as a big resource for you to check out what's there. And then, of course, us, Jazz Denmark as well. You'll find the contact information there as well. But if you have any questions, you always get in touch with us. The media in Denmark. We have a few newspapers writing about jazz, but not a lot compared to the size. And mainly big international artists get space in the press. But we have these three: Jazz Special, Passive Aggressive, and Salt Peanuts. Jazz Special is everything from jazz. Passive Aggressive is more experimental stuff, and not jazz in particular. And Salt Peanuts is basically looking at jazz all over the Nordic countries. Then we have some labels that are worth mentioning. I think Giant Sheep, Storyville, April Records, and Stunt Records. You might know some of them, but they are releasing a lot of Danish music, but also maybe we worth checking out for collaborations with Danish artists as well. And then for the last bit, we have one manager here in Denmark, but she'll be talking tomorrow, so maybe you can actually talk to her about how to get into Denmark, because it's like I said, the best part would be through personal connections, really. Yeah, and I could go through funding. Of course, us, Jazz Denmark, we have a pool that Danish artists can apply for going to outside of Denmark. So if you have a collaboration with a Danish artist, there might actually be some funding for them to go to France or whatever. So if you get a collaboration, check that out. That could be a possibility. Of course, then you have the musicians union. They can also be helpful, and of course the state, the Arts Council are the main funding institutions in Denmark. So there's if you have a collaboration, there are possibilities to get that funded. I'm not saying that it's easy, but it is possible. And then last but not least, these are my contact info, and I think it's, yeah, like I said, if you want to know something, get in touch with us. We'll probably point you in the right direction and giving you some clues to where you might want to look and who to contact in Denmark, because it is, like I said, it's quite diverse, so it's not always easy to say what works and what doesn't work. And of course, you can always meet us at Jazz Ahead if you're participating in Jazz Ahead. We're always there. So if you want to know a bit more about Denmark, come visit us at Jazz Ahead, for instance, if you're there. And yeah, I think that's a quick run through. There's of course 1,000 more things to say, but within 10 minutes, it's always difficult to like say what works and what's there. So yeah, feel free to ask any questions later on. I think that will be the easiest part. Oh, that is in time.
Thank you, Lars.
Yeah.
And when Lars mentioned that the part of the venues on the website of Jazz Denmark is in Danish, but don't worry, because at one point I tried to do a crossword puzzle in the Jazz Special magazine, which also Lars mentioned, and that was in Danish, but I managed to get some words correctly there. So don't worry about the language. And from Denmark, we will move up to Sweden, and since Estonia and Denmark, they're relatively small countries in distances. But now we will move on to Sweden, which is the first of our 3 really long countries where the distances are particularly long, considering, for example, touring. And I don't have any bridge from Denmark to Sweden, but hey, there is one already. So let's welcome Lisa Löfgren from the Swedish Jazz Federation called Svensk.
Hi. Lisan, are you going to be able to share my PowerPoint? Or who can do that? Should I do it? Do you hear me? No. Perfect. I hope you hear me. Yeah, so my name is Lisa Löfgren, and I am a project manager, producer at Svensk, which is the Swedish Jazz Association. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Sweden and the Swedish jazz scene. And then, as Lars also said, you can always contact us if you have questions about Sweden or the Swedish jazz scene, and we'll try to help you and point you in the right direction, because it's not very easy to give a picture in this short amount of time. But anyway, the Swedish jazz scene mostly consists of venues that are non-profit or run by non-profit organizers. And these operate side by side with a few professional actors. So we just have a few venues that actually have employees and so on. There are a handful of jazz festivals, of which the largest program international artists and groups. And I'll get back to that later on. In Sweden, you will find an interest for a wide range of jazz styles, from more traditional to modern and jazz with a Nordic touch. I would say very many of the venues are small and book mostly Swedish and even like local artists, but we have a few bigger venues that also book internationally. Let's move on. So, Svensk, we are a non-profit umbrella organization, and we are a voice for the Swedish jazz music and music life in a political context. We work practically to ensure that a variety of live music reaches existing and new listening groups. We sometimes do projects like touring projects and so on, but we are a very small organization with 2 employees and funding from the cultural, the state. So we apply for funding for different projects and so on. And sometimes we have many and sometimes we don't. Right now, we don't. So it's kind of a tough situation for us. In 2020, Svensk had 87 clubs and venues as members. And as I said, most of these are very small. We can move on. If you're traveling to Sweden, citizens from the EU don't need a visa, but some people might need a visa. So depending on which country you're traveling from, you better check that out. We can move on to festivals. Yes. We have a few major jazz festivals. The biggest one, I would say, is Stockholm Jazz Festival. This one is Sweden's oldest festival and one of Stockholm's biggest events. This is an international festival that runs in mid-October every year. Then we have Umeå Jazz Festival. For more than 50 years, this unique scene for jazz and improvised music has been a regular music event in Umeå in the north of Sweden. The festival runs in late October as well as Stockholm. So I think Umeå is the week after Stockholm. So that's good to know if you're looking for festival gigs. It's good to contact both Stockholm and Umeå. And those cities are quite far apart also, so it's not the same audience. We have Ystad, Sweden Jazz Festival in the south of Sweden. They run about 40 concerts over 5 days in early August. Concerts in Ystad's unique environment and the family atmosphere makes this festival very special. And Ystad is a really small town, very, very pretty and nice. And this festival has, they have a lot of concerts. Jahrn Löfgren, the Swedish pianist, is very much involved in Ystad Jazz Festival. And then the last one, Stockholm Women International Jazz Festival. This is a new one, promoting female instrumentalists, band leaders, and composers within jazz and improvised music. And the 3rd edition of this festival will be run this year in May, partly digital, I think, due to the corona situation. We have the major venues that I want to mention are Fasching in Stockholm, Nefertiti in Göteborg, and Jazz in Malmö. So Göteborg and Malmö are 2 cities in the south of Sweden, not very far from each other, and then you have Stockholm on the east coast. I would recommend you to contact them early and to build relations. Also in Sweden, it's also important with a personal connection in order to be able to book gigs. We don't have very many promoters, I think that's the word. So most of the booking is done by the bands. You have to contact every venue yourself. On our website, now I don't have a picture of that, but on svenskjazz.se, you can find a list of all the venues that are members in Svensk Jazz. So there you can also get an overview of what venues you can be looking at. So, how do you get a gig in Sweden? Well, it's not a very easy question to answer, but a few tips would be to collaborate with a Swedish band, to contact every club or booker separately, or to contact a regional producer. We have a few producers that work regionally with booking jazz and booking more like tours and so on, and they often book international acts. So I have just listed 2 of those there, and that's, if you're interested in that, maybe you could also contact us and we could help you find the right person. All right, cultural funding. The Swedish Arts Council, this is governmental authority supporting art, culture, and international exchange. Swedish organizations can apply for different sorts of funding, including international collaboration projects and tour funding. And then we have the Performing Arts Agency, which also is a governmental authority, where Swedish organizations can apply for funding regarding national or international collaboration projects. So for most of these, some Swedish artists have to apply for the funding, but as I said, it's a good idea to collaborate, and that way you can also be a part of this. Then the last one, the Swedish Arts Grants Committee, a governmental authority that promotes opportunities for artists to further develop their artistic creativity and practice. The committee provides grants for international cultural exchange and travel grants. Contribution to international cultural exchange can refer to Swedish artists participating in exchange programs abroad, and foreign artists and other persons invited to Sweden to exchange ideas or work with Swedish artists. Just a few media. This SRP2 is the Swedish National Radio Channel 2, which focuses on jazz and folk and classical music. And then I want to mention 2 magazines. The magazine Jazz, earlier on it had the name Orkesterjournalen, but now it's called Jazz, and it's the world's oldest magazine for jazz, funded in 1933. And then we have Lyra, which is a music magazine that also focuses on jazz, but also on other genres. Okay, here are a few support organizations that you might want to check out. First of all, it's Export Music Sweden, which is the Swedish export office. So, I mean, they work mostly with export, but they have a good overview of the Swedish market as well. Then we have Musikcentrum Sweden, which is promoting the independent Swedish music and presenting a unique nonprofit resource for festivals and promoters, as well as being a tool for anyone aiming to build relations to Swedish music and musicians. And Ragnar Bertling from Musikcentrum will be joining the session tomorrow, so you will hear more from him. Knutpunkt Nefertiti is a regional network that collaborates to strengthen organizers and associations within jazz and improvised music in the western region of Sweden. And Maria Rylander, who works for Knutpunkt, will be joining the breakout rooms in just a few minutes. FSJ is the organization for Swedish jazz musicians. So if you visit their website, you can find a lot of the Swedish jazz musicians there, and that might be a good way to be looking for collaborations or interesting musicians. And the last one is Svensk Visarkiv. This is the Center for Swedish Folk Music and Jazz. They research, collect, preserve, and publish in the field of instrumental and vocal traditional music, older popular songs, and Swedish jazz. And Svensk Visarkiv is open to all researchers, students, performing musicians, and the public. All right, and here is just my contact information. I have one colleague, Louise, who is also working at the office, so it's fine to speak to her or to me. And ask us if you have any questions about Sweden, and we'll try to help you. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Lisa. And as you might know, the Swedish music scene in general is a pioneer in the Nordics, at least, regarding equality and diversity on stage. So that's something we can all learn from. And also, we have formed a network of, I think, 14 Nordic promoters, actually Iceland included, who can unfortunately be here, but that where we learn and try and get more knowledge on the ecological sustainability issues. So those are two of the things that we're working currently on with the Nordic countries together. And let's go to the second long country, to Norway, which of all the Nordic countries is probably the most well-known regarding the jazz scene. So let's give the floor to Jahrn Holtan from Norsk jazzforum, which is the Norwegian Jazz Federation.
Hi everyone. I'll just open my PowerPoint, 2 seconds. I hope you can see it. Yes, my name is Jahrn Holtan, and I'm working at the Norsk jazzforum, and I just started 1 month ago, actually. And before that, I was working at Oslo Jazz Festival as a producer. And Norsk jazzforum is a non-profit organization who connect Norwegian jazz scene. Our vision is to be a vibrant and leading jazz nation, and to spread jazz to the widest possible audience in Norway and Norwegian jazz abroad. So we're also working to increase fundings and to be a professional and future-oriented member organization. So we represent both jazz musicians, clubs, festivals, big bands, as well as higher music education. So arguably Norway has become a vibrant jazz nation because of collaboration and structures. So Norsk jazzforum emerged from Norsk jazzforbund, Norwegian Jazz Federation for clubs, and Norwegian jazz musicians in 1997, and it was the Department of Culture that initiated it, and the Arts Council of Norway that had a working group to organize this. In the years following, the regional jazz centers, we got regional jazz centers in every region in Norway, and they work more production-based than Norsk jazzforum, with large ensembles, tours, youth programs. They also work with clubs, and yeah. And in 2006, we got National Jazz Scene, National Jazz Scene, who is for the whole country. The venue is in Oslo, so they book artists from abroad as well as Norwegians. So here is a map of the regions. As Raisa mentioned, Norway is an elongated country. So, but in the course of a year, there's about 7,000 concerts across the country, and a large number of jazz clubs, festivals, professional musicians. The last year, of course, has been difficult, and the regional centers, they are reporting that it's half of the activity in 2020, and even less audience. So because of the restrictions, and as of today, there's 20 people indoors on events and 50 people outdoors. So travel abroad is not recommended, and we have to avoid unnecessary domestic travel as well. So here's a picture of the clubs as of 2019, I think. So you can see there's a lot in the east and spread all over the country. So most of them are run by volunteers and enthusiasts. Some of the major clubs are more professional run, and that's like National Jazz Scene, who was awarded the EGN Adventurous Programming in 2020. Cosmopolite in Oslo, who's represented by Marte Heggenhaugen later in the breakout rooms. We also got Bergen and Stavanger Jazzforum, and Dockhus stage in Trondheim. So and the festivals, there are approximately, actually I think it's over 30 festivals now, located from the south coast and all the way to the island you can see on the left, Svalbard, in the Arctic Ocean. So and most of these are professionally run, and there's a long history and a strong festival tradition in Norway. So you have like Molde International Jazz Festival, which is 61 years, I think now, and Kongsberg Jazz Festival, 58 years. So a long tradition. Musicians, this map is the members of Norsk jazzforum. So it's even more. And relative to the 5 million inhabitants, it's a lot. And one important factor has been the growth. It's been the music education policy, because more than 40 years ago, the Trondheim Music Conservatory was established as the first school offering college and university level education. And now there are several institutions of higher music learning in Trondheim, Oslo, Bergen, as well as rhythmical music in Kristiansand and Tromsø. Funding, Norwegian Jazz Forum and the Norwegian Jazz Forum and the National Jazz Scene is funded by the Ministry of Culture, and the regional jazz centers, as well as musician projects, ensembles, festivals, venues are on the Norwegian Art Council usually. And there's also possible to apply for touring abroad for musicians and the ones representing the musicians from Music Norway. Music Norway is again funded by the Ministry of Culture and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So I think these numbers also are from 2019. 2020 has been different. So yeah, and Norsk jazzforum also have some fundings, ad hoc fundings, so it's on short notice to get activities going, and musicians, big bands, and venues can apply. We also have fundings for young musicians under 26 through Free Fund, and annually scholarships for musicians and bands. So, and during the pandemic, it's possible to apply for different kind of projects, also records in this period to get more activity going. Yeah, these are maybe the three main bookers: Kalleklev Management in Bergen, Musikkprofil in Skien, and Vibe Agency in Oslo. And Marte, who's later joining us, she's working with Vibe Agency as well as Cosmopolit. Main labels and distributor. I don't have the time to mention everyone, but here are some of the main ones. So I can send this later as well. The picture, This Is Our Music, was a book that Norsk jazzforum released during JazzEd 2019, where we were the focusing country, and it also contains a list of epic records. That's I think all the way from the 50s until today, from Norway. Musikkoperatørene was the main physical distributor of records, and of course now it's also doing digital distribution. So the media situation is difficult, as in the rest of Europe, I think. Traditional media has made big cuts in the coverage of culture and music, and has become far more tabloid. This is especially true to the narrow genres such as jazz. And as we speak, there's a big debate about music coverage in the Norwegian Broadcasting Corporation, NRK, in Norway. Jazzklubben NRK, the jazz club, is a radio program that they have. Jazznytt magazine is the only jazz magazine in Norway with 4 issues a year. And Klassekampen is more of a daily newspaper that have a weekly magazine for music on Mondays. We also got Thor Jazz, that's both a blog and a radio program, and as Lars mentions, Salt Peanuts, that's all over Nordic countries. Jan Granli from Norway is the editor. So yeah, this is just an example on how you can get collaborations to get to play in the Nordic countries. This was a collaboration with all the sister organizations before I started with Jazz Migration in France. So all the promoters in the EGN was invited to this, and it was at the same time a general assembly, and the Norwegian, the band Al Napneset Trio, and 4 other bands from the Nordic countries played there at the Pine Piper. So as to recommendation for French musicians to play in Norway and export their music, as my colleagues mentioned, a lot of personal contacts is the key. I think collaborations with other musicians is important, but there of course has to be a creative click, and also working with the agents that know the Norwegian market, and get other promoters to recommend. Promoters they usually like to be genuine and discover music in their own terms, and you have to like get them to chase you, not the opposite. I think a gig at the right club or festival, of course, is good, but the tip would have to be to get to know the festival program's profile, down to what kind of venues they use, and try to get to know the people working in the festivals and clubs, the main clubs. The more smaller clubs don't usually book so much artists from abroad, but and yeah, the right timing to contact, not like during the festival or something like that. Every second year, the Oslo Jazz Festival get a new program committee, and you can try to find out something there about them, and maybe showcasing sometimes can work, like a lot of Norwegian festivals and promoters travel to JazzEd and European Jazz Network, and yeah, maybe be a part of a bigger wave than only one artist, like the British wave a few years ago. Then there's a lot of interest around these artists. So, and the basic stuff like professional picture and live video, preferably from a professional venue or festival. So we can talk more about this in the breakout room, maybe. For other professionals, I think delegate programs like Kongsberg Jazz Meeting, Nutshell doing Nattias, and Oslo Jazz Expo is a good arena, and collaborations like Jazz Migration and the Nordic Jazz Comets. And of course, you can contact us in Norsk jazzforum we can put you in contact with others. So I think that's all the time I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Roy. And in case you wondered who that female guitar player in those last few slides was, that was Hedvig Møllerstad. Really, really fantastic player. You should check her out. And also Roy, who just presented the Norwegian presentation, has recently started at the Norsk jazzforum, and he comes from the Oslo Jazz Festival. So when we get to the discussions, he might know a thing or two about the festival scene also in Norway. But I guess it's time for me to say a few words about Finland. So let's try to share it. Right. I hope you can hear me there. But so I'm Raisa Siivola from Jazz Finland, and I'm here to tell you a bit about jazz in Finland. So as you well know, it all starts with an active community of musicians. So the first American jazz musicians are said to have arrived in Finland in 1926 on a ship called SS Estonian. So that's when the people in Helsinki heard this sinful music for the first time. Since we Finns have always loved the concept of registered associations for the mix of local improvisation to the Finnish society rules, the musicians began to form jazz club associations already in the 30s. And one of these little music clubs was called Pori Jazz 66 in the west coast of Finland. And in the end of the 40s, these tiny chapters from all over Finland came together and founded the Finnish Rhythm Clubs Federation. The since expired federation gave form to a new coalition in 1966. A handful of Finnish jazz musicians wanted to promote the value of jazz and improvised music to the policymakers of that time, who considered only classical music was worth supporting. They also wanted to make jazz more available and accessible to the common Finn who had already found the Beatles. So that was when the Finnish Jazz Federation saw daylight. Today, 55 years later, we are called Suomen Jazzliitto in Finnish and Jazz Finland in English. And we are a membership organization and represent our 46 community members in the culture political tables. Our members are mostly clubs or festivals who organize live events in Finland. And our oldest member is Pori Jazz 66 Association. So we are the national service organization dedicated to the promotion of jazz music and jazz culture in Finland. And on our website, www.jazzfinland.fi, you'll find more information about us by clicking the white Jazzliitto button on the upper right headline, if you can see that there. The website itself is actually a comprehensive database of Finnish jazz. So whether it's concerts, releases, news, artists, businesses you're looking for, the chances are you'll find it there. And there's also a search option if you want to search something in particular. You have heard, like I just named Hedvig Møllestad, if you have heard about maybe a Finnish musician or maybe a club, just type it into the black field and you will probably find it. But at Jazz Finland, one of our most important and visible services is tour production for our members. And this also has to do a bit about a form of international cooperation that hasn't been used that much, but it's possible. So Jazz Finland produces 8 to 10 national tours annually in Finland, and also our tours sometimes extend to Estonia, or even we might do some collaboration with Sweden because they are our next door neighbors. And also each year we produce or co-produce one Finnish-French double bill tour by the agency called Vapaat Äänet. And here we come across a familiar name of Jahrn, who's an agent and manager living in Finland and promoting mostly Finnish and French improvised music. And the bands can apply for our tours 1 year in advance, and the next application is open from April the 12th of April to 17th of May, and that's for touring in the spring of 2022. Also, Jazz Finland produces an open-air summer festival called Jazz Espa, and that happens in the Helsinki city center. And also for this, we have an application possibility. And of course, the board of directors chooses and selects these programs, but there's one condition for the nationality is that majority of musicians have to be Finnish. So if you have collaborations, it is a possibility to apply for these tours in Finland. And here are our small office of 2 people, and then we also have some part-time workers as well. This is Jazz in Finland in brief, and all this information comes from our database and service that Jazz Finland does or has been conducting. So we are 5.5 million people, so I think this is this is quite nice turnout on our website for jazz. And in the bottom, it's stated that we received 5.65 million euros of public support for jazz in 2020. And as for venues, the international acts are mainly booked in bigger cities like Helsinki and Turku and Tampere. And the market is very small, and audiences as well, obviously. The indoor venues capacity is usually from 50 to 250 people, and the concert halls with larger capacities may book more, let's say, commercial acts, because they don't have to rely on ticket sales so much because they are subsidized by the cities. And as I mentioned earlier, Finns love their non-profit association, so most of the jazz concerts are organized by them. And you will find their contacts on the Jazz Finland website as well. But here are some examples of venues that we have. We have the G-Live Lab in Helsinki and also now in Tampere. We have Koko Jazz Club in Helsinki. And for more traditional jazz, we have Happy Jazz Club Storyville. And then one of the bigger venues in downtown Helsinki is called Savoy Theatre, which is profiled in jazz. And the festival side, in 2019, the 41 Finnish jazz festivals reported they had 500,000 festival goers. Just to put the figure on scale, the week-long Pori Jazz Festival accounts for 3.5 million of them. 300,000 of them. And the rest share the rest. And again, most of the organizers are associations. But it's interesting how big the live jazz industry is in Finland regarding, for example, staffing and employment. Because in 2019, the jazz events employed 700 people in staff and engaged over 1,000 volunteers. If you think that 88% of them are these non-profit organizations. And at the same time, the jazz events employed over 3,500 musicians. Here are some of the major festivals or festivals who would have the capacity to book foreign acts. And as mentioned, Pori Jazz Festival is the biggest one in Finland and also the biggest festival in Finland if you measure it by the festival goers. Then we have what is really remarkable in Finland is that we have one very old and prestigious big band called Uma Helsinki Jazz Orchestra, and then we also have the famous university, Sibelius Academy, which has the jazz department. And just recently we have started collaborating with both Uma Helsinki Jazz Orchestra and Sibelius Academy's jazz department and the Finnish Musicians Union. And we have a new residency project or program called Jazz Finland Residency. And this is a brand new thing. And unfortunately, because of the pandemic, we haven't been able to start it yet. But we are bringing some of the top talents from all over the world to spend time in Helsinki and collaborate with the big band, but also with the students and the venues and clubs and festivals and so on. And it'll be amazing. Some of the labels, I just took a few examples here about them. So I'm just going to be brave and read them out loud. So, for example, if you talk about We Jazz Records, which is one of the labels that actually have a brick-and-mortar jazz record store in Helsinki. For example, their international acts, The Guardian selected the Swiss vocalist Lucia Kadoc's album Speak Low 2 as the album of the month in November 2020. The album came out on the Helsinki-based We Jazz Records, and the album release concert was to take place at We Jazz Festival in December. So they represent a company where they have together, they have a record label and a festival, and also their sub-company does media relations. And then the Tampere-based Eclipse Music launched a new digital record label in 2018 to promote new and rising talents. So Eclipse Music Digital releases the music in all main online services such as Spotify, iTunes, and Tidal. And Eclipse Digital operates as the label of light production and easy access for new artists without bargaining on quality. And from Eclipse, we have Tapio Ylinen with us at the discussions today. So you can probably ask more about this as well from him. And there are also a few other examples, but it's common for Finnish labels to also have like either that they work with these underground styles or combined styles, or that they are part of some bigger collective, maybe of clubs or festivals or orchestras or something. And just 2 words about some support services from France to Finland or between France and Finland. So since 1996, Vapaat Äänet agency run by agent Jahrn has produced and helped with the Finnish-French tour productions in Finland and also in France, and a little bit in the Baltic states as well. And you can apply for support for the French artist performances in Finland from the Institut Français Finlandais. And also we have the possibility to apply for Telepart mobility support program support. They fund traveling and accommodation costs up to $1,000. And that's between, for example, France and Finland. Also, as I mentioned earlier, we have a Nordic network where we try to promote sustainable touring, and we will release a guide for touring in the Nordic countries later this year. And also, the personal relations, they are, I think, the most important way or most efficient way, although it requires a lot of hard work, but to be able to break into the Finnish market or collaborate with the Finnish businesses, but also be active in your own community and see collaborations, because a lot of the projects or networks or new initiatives, they have somebody in your neighborhood that is going to be participating. So also like your local networks are relevant here, and not just the networks in your kind of target country. So I think that's one of the keys to success in the Nordic countries as well as in anywhere else. And here is just an example photo from a project called Jazz Connective. And that is a project between, I remember, maybe 8 European cities, and Helsinki being one of them. So that is my presentation. And so welcome to Finland, and let me know if I can be of any assistance to it. But this this is it for the presentations. Thank you everybody for joining us and also for presenting. And thank you, Jahrn, and our technical manager, Benjamin, there. And now I will give the floor to Jahrn, and we'll hear what's going to happen next.
Yeah, thank you very, very much, Raisa, and thank you to all of you. The exercise was not easy in such a short time, so thank you very much. It was very interesting. A special thanks to my colleague Benjamin also, who is behind the screen. And for those of you who have registered for the breakout session, see you in a moment. And for the rest of you, please join us tomorrow for the panel discussion Shaping New Models for International Jazz Collaboration.